Fusionary Health, my podcast where I interview the best of the best in health and wellness. I have the pleasure of interviewing and meeting with the most incredible practitioners in the health and wellness space who are physicians, who are practitioners in different ways. And I love to share their wisdom with you. So every month I'll be sharing a solo episode on Ayurveda, and I'll also be sharing these incredible interviews. So let's dive in. Hi, Lorna.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course. Thanks for coming. So Lorna is Little Chef Big Food, and I'm really excited to chat with you today. Will you share a little bit about who you are, your story? Because I know you had an autoimmune condition that led to you diving deep into nutrition and food in such a cool way. And I always love people who use food as a primary tool in their toolkit to heal their bodies. And so I'd love for you to share a little more about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a chef, right? I graduated many years ago. And so I love food. That was my big thing. That's why I went after high school, I was like, I need to study food.
Yeah.
And I worked in restaurants and catering and all of that. And then I had my first daughter. And I had a super healthy pregnancy, and that went really well. And then we went to have the second baby, and I had a miscarriage around 4.5 months. And it was a baby girl, and I went to lots of different doctors, and I wanted to kind of understand what's going on. Because conventional medicine tells you, there's statistics on you losing a baby, and that's normal. And I, being very persistent, was like, no, this is not normal, and I don't want this to repeat itself. So I began working with functional medicine doctor, and he really dove into what was really going on.
Wow.
So they found mold, and they found that I had a gene, the MTHRF gene, which a lot of people have it and they have no idea. And it's just, we normalize all of these symptoms, right? As maybe you're getting older, you interpret that you didn't sleep well or whatever it is. And really, there's a lot going inside that we don't know. In my case, the loss triggered my autoimmune. Wow. And that autoimmune was vitiligo. So for those of you that don't know what vitiligo is, it's basically decoloration of the pigmentation of your skin. So you have some spots that are wider or lighter, and it begins to spread like wildfire if you don't tame it, right?
Yeah, and you might have noticed people who they're around their eyes, nose, and mouth. That's kind of where it's really prevalent, or on the back of their hands, on their feet and legs. A lot of Indians and Asians suffer with vitiligo. So as an Indian, we know all about it.
Okay.
And most people don't know about it. But if you imagine like Michael Jackson and certain people started with white spots, and then it can spread over the whole body if it's not somehow contained or battled. Yeah.
So I began to present these symptoms, and the first thing that the doctor tells you is, go to a doctor and they'll give you a cream, right? But the problem's really persisting from inside out, and that's what they don't explain to you. And functional medicine, you speaking to somebody can kind of relate to it. I mean, they work from the inside out.
Exactly.
And so, like I mentioned, I had mold and I had all of these issues, and I began to attack. And one of the things that he said was, you need to help me attack all of this, not only with supplements, but with food. And I was like, well, I know food.
Yeah, of course.
And he goes, no, restaurant food.
Sure.
you know conventional food, regular food. This is medicine food. Like, food is medicine. And that's where, to me, it was mind blowing, because I was like, wait, how is this, how is one thing related to the other? So I went back to school and I went to study nutrition, and I studied also to be a health coach, a functional medicine health coach, or functional nutritional health coach.
Yes.
And I realized that a lot of the oils, a lot of the products that we were using, animal products, and, I even went to the farms and I said, how does a tomato grow? What is, put on a tomato?
Yeah.
So, it's sprayed with glyphosate.
Yeah.
In 3 stages of its life.
Wow.
Right? Before it's born, in the process of, and then at the end.
Wow.
And when you study what's on a simple tomato, you're looking at 42 different known pesticides.
Right.
So are we eating a tomato, or are we eating pesticides?
Or pesticide soup.
Or pesticide soup.
Yeah.
Isn't
that crazy?
And it always trickles. It's like a domino effect. Because once you learn that, then you're like, okay, well, what's the component of a tomato? Oh, it has high lectins. And so it's just,
I
know. We can talk about this for hours, and I love it, but it's really what you are, what you eat.
Totally.
And I merged basically my knowledge of how to prepare food, how to grow it, and how it can heal you.
Amazing.
And I, with obviously the help of the functional medicine doctor, doing a detox on the mold, using infrared sauna, Epsom bath salt, Pilates, yoga, just the mix of things. And then obviously being conscious of what I was putting in my mouth, it stopped.
Awesome.
And I didn't have to put a cream on. I didn't have to get this laser. I didn't have to do any of it.
Sure.
I had you mentioned the eyes. I had these white prominent spots on my eyes, and you can see me now. I barely wear makeup.
Yeah.
So, and they began to regenerate pigmentation on some spots. Other ones I still have, and that to me is, I wake up and I think, what am I putting in my mouth?
Sure.
That doesn't continue to make my autoimmune worse.
Sure.
And so I kind of see it as activated and deactivated, if that makes any sense,
You put your vitiligo in remission.
In remission.
And in any given moment, you could reactivate or keep it in
100%.
deactivated mode.
100%. And there's a lot of things that trigger that. It's obviously a huge part is you are what, the food that you're putting in your mouth. But another is, stress. How much stress do you have on a daily basis? How many toxins we have? Because we go out there and we drink from bottled water, or we go out there and we use plastic containers into warm food. And it's a lot of components that sometimes can overwhelm you. But if you become conscious of this, it can actually help you in the long run. And so what are we looking for? We're looking for more years. We're looking for the best type of quality of life.
True.
So yeah.
That's awesome. No, I love that. I love that introduction to yourself, because when I heard you share that before, I was like, she's my girl. She totally gets what I teach. That's what I'm trying to say to the world is we have an opportunity to build vibrant health every day. Mm-hmm. And when we get these disease pathologies diagnosed, really that diagnosis is just a wake-up call. Mm-hmm. And that wake-up call is your opportunity to create a total shift. And you get to decide which toolkit you reach into. Conventional medicine has its toolkits, and a lot of the times those are fantastic. I love acute chronic. I love the acute care. I love their surgeries. I love when I need a solution, Western medicine will give it to me.
That's right.
But I also think that we forget, or we may not have been exposed to all the other integrative modalities. They're not really alternative. They're the ancient original modalities that had profound toolkits for our health. Ayurveda is an entire system of medicine with detox protocols and toolkits. Naturopathic medicine, very aligned to Ayurvedic. Homeopathy. I love homeopathic solutions for people. I love acupuncture. I love Reiki. I love, you name a modality, I try all of them. Mm-hmm. And I want to know for me and my body, which ones work for me that I can reach for the minute I need them.
That's correct.
And then when people have a health issue, I'm like, you could go this way, that way, or this way. And I love to know the best of the best practitioners in each field. So when someone presents a problem, I'm like, you should go there. Mm-hmm. And then it's done. Like their problem is solved. It doesn't have to be through me,
Yeah, we speak the same language. I also work with a lot of functional medicine doctors, and each of them have their specialty or their speciality. I mean, if you're looking for a gut, you should really look, at that doctor who's really researched that gut. And there's all sorts of it. And it's like you said, it's a toolkit. Yeah, it's a toolkit, and what works for me may not work for you, but works for another person. And what are we looking at? Yeah. Or what are we doing on a daily basis to get there?
Exactly. And let's talk about that for a moment, because other people might not have this like texture or understanding, but every doctor is so different. Mm-hmm. And I built my supplement company about 7 years ago. I've had the honor of meeting thousands of doctors. And people might think, oh, it's a chiropractor. No. Every chiropractor is very different.
That's right.
I have many who I met who I would never let touch my body. And then I have some who I'm like, gosh, I wish they were next door to me, because I could use that level of care every day. Like, right. And that's who I send all my clients who have big problems. I'll send it to this person. And if I wanted that level of help, I'd send it to that person. So it's really cool if you're able to build your dream team for life.
That's right.
But let's talk about how even within functional medicine, people might think, oh, I have a complex health issue. I have an autoimmune condition. I need someone to help me unpack this and get to my root cause that's just in my body. but have you seen that each functional medicine doctor has their own approach, their own flavor, their own taste?
That's right.
Can you speak into that a little bit, like what you've seen?
Yeah. You know, the one I worked with at the beginning when I had zero idea, right? He did study chiropractor. He is a chiropractor, right? Nice. And then he dove into even more, and he went into Harvard Medical School, and it was just, he continues to study, and it's his approach, like you say, right? And then I work with another one he's an intern. He basically sees from head to toe. And what I love about him is that he finds the mystery of what's going on when other doctors don't. And he has the ability to do so. And he uses a whole different system than the first one I just mentioned, from different supplements, different supplement companies, which I've, had the pleasure of using or even studying or seeing, to the first one.
Right.
So do they both work? Yes, they both work. Absolutely. But they both have different ways, and not just only these two examples, other ones,
Sure.
I love how there's a specific doctor. She actually works for Baptist.
Okay.
So she is what we call Western medicine or the conventional medicine, however,
Sure.
But she also has a functional medicine practice in Bal Harbor.
Okay.
And she's a specialist in the gut.
Nice.
So she sees on a day-to-day, medicine, that she works in the ER in Baptist in South Miami.
Wow.
And then on her days off, she gets to go to Bal Harbor and,
wow,
and work with clients or patients that whole different spectrum.
Yeah, these are two opposite spectrums.
It's two opposite spectrums, and she does both.
Yeah.
She has like 4 kids, so I don't know how she does it.
Right.
But she has a different approach, and that's really, what I love. She has a whole different approach. She has a whole different gamut of knowledge, and she's serving both worlds.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Different toolkit, like you mentioned.
Yeah. And I've seen that. I have, there's a whole class of doctors called DPC, direct primary care. Mm-hmm. Most people wouldn't know about it. It's really up and coming. But a DPC doctor is someone who really has a panel of patients, and that's all they see. And they're available by text, by phone. It's like a membership model.
Wow. And
by being part of their membership, you get access to them. And they have the time to kind of dive into your issues and your struggles and what's going on with you. And so I've seen DPC do functional medicine. And I think that that's wonderful too, because they have the time then to go into it with you for an hour or an hour and a half and say, I figured it out. This is your main health struggle. This is how you should approach it.
Wow.
And so it's really cool to see all those different practitioners. And some of them are internal medicine with functional medicine. So each one coming from their own lens and their own background and their own approach have different ways to help you.
Yes. I love that.
So let's talk about you for a moment. When you have clients who come to you, and when you said chef, I got really curious because I was like, do you help people cook food in their homes? Do you ever deliver the food so none of us have to cook again? Cooking is so much work. And as an Ayurvedic practitioner, to me, food is the most important thing I deliver in my home. Yes, I take care of everyone with love. Yes, it's a healthy space, all those things. And you mentioned plastic containers. To me, when I was ready to have children, it was a really big decision of the whole house must run at an Ayurvedic level of at the least amount of toxic burden that we can put on ourselves. So I had switched all the cleaning products to organic and natural. We only store food in Pyrex, in glass. We never store anything in plastic. All the glassware, my kids don't drink out of plastic. They have steel cups. They eat out of steel plates. They never ate out of plastic. So a lot of this work to just build a baseline of lowering their toxic burden was important. To me, also, their future fertility was important. I know that's a weird thought, but if our current generation is struggling, you better believe the future generations are so screwed.
Yes.
And so I thought, wow, let me invest in my dear Anya's future ability to have a child by just being conscious of everything that's happening baseline. But let's dive into food. So who are the people who typically come to you? Because I know you mentioned ice pops and cancer patients. Will you share a little bit of that? Because that's, part of your story. And I want to share that with people of why you got into what you're doing, who you help the most, and some of the ways that you help them.
Yeah. So I help more people who, and it's hard to say this, but they're sick, right? They've already gone through the fact and where they know something's wrong, and they've seen, medicine, like conventional medicine, and then they're just on 4, 5, 6 different scripts. And they're wondering, am I going to do this for the rest of my life? Because every year something adds on and piles on. And how do I reverse it? Like, I wasn't born with it. It's what I hear from them. And you're right. We weren't born with it. So let's dive into what are you eating when you wake up? How many times are you going to the bathroom? And they're like, why does that matter? And I'm like, because if it comes in, it must go out. And how is it coming out is very important.
Exactly. Are you going once a day? Are you going twice a day? What does that look like?
What does it look exactly?
And people think it's so invasive, but I'm like, no, you can share. I'm very curious about your poop.
Yes. What type of skin do you have? Like, are you breaking out? Are you breaking out in the back of your arm? Like, a lot of people don't realize that those are sensitivities to food. Right. I mean, maybe you're not allergic that you need an EpiPen, but your body's giving you signals. Not only and you're tired and you have migraine, and it's giving you signals that you're not doing well. You're not doing so good. So, they come to me and they're like, what is going on? And it's people from cancer, people who have autoimmune, people who just have IBS. If you really, like, my message out there is, if you want to get better through food, I'm your person.
Nice. That's awesome.
Whatever, even if you want to do preventative.
Absolutely.
Which it's actually like maybe a 5% of clients, right? 95% of them, they come to me when they're already ill. Right. So we really dive into, what are you eating? What is the first thing that you're eating after having breakfast? And breakfast, they're like, why is it the most important time of our meal of the day? And it's really because you fasted all night long.
Correct.
So what are you breaking that fast with?
Right.
It doesn't have to be at 8 a.m. It could be at 11 a.m. if you so choose.
Sure.
But what is it that you're eating? Are you eating pure carbs in the morning? Are you eating pure, carbs, starches, sugar? Is that the first thing that your body's receiving?
Sure.
And really dive into their nutrition. And once I have that information from them, then I can build a plan for them.
Okay.
Because like I mentioned, what's good for one person necessarily isn't good for the other.
Right.
And then comes the recipes,
okay.
And the food shopping. I'll take them to the supermarket and I'll say, hey, you want to use this chicken instead of this chicken? Sure. Even though they both say organic, if it's saying a vegetarian fed diet, you're going to want to stay away from that. Okay. Because those chickens had corn, soy, and wheat.
Sure.
And if you're avoiding corn, soy, and wheat on this plan I'm putting on you, and the chicken's eating it,
yes,
then it's kind of a moot point at this point. You know what I mean?
True.
And it's the same thing. Like, where are you getting your vegetables from? And I guide them towards local farmers and just steer them away from that huge, the consumerism that exists here, because we're looking for something that's as organic as possible.
Right.
On eggs, on whatever it is. I don't say, you know what, you're no longer able to eat any of this. No, let's substitute this.
Sure. For
a better quality. Let's substitute it for something more clean. Let's start with that.
So what are some of your success stories? Because, out of all the things you're talking about, I agree with you. 95% of people who come to someone like you or me or any practitioner, it's usually because they've been living their life, their normal life, their normal way. Typically, we're taught by our parents what a diet is. Mm-hmm. It's the household diet. Whatever we're fed as children becomes what we eat as adults. Mm-hmm. And they did the best they knew. And so, especially growing up in America, many of us grew up eating fast food and all these things because it was convenient and easy. No one thought anything of it, that it was bad, especially back in the 80s and back then. But now we know better. And so people are trying to do better. But even though they're doing better, they're still ending up sick and diseased. And so a lot of what you're talking about, I think people know it, like in the back of their mind, a lot of them know it. But putting it into practice is the hard part. Yes. Like sometimes even I shop when I'm with my kids, we're at Sprouts and I'm like, go for it, guys. Whatever you want to buy, you can have, because I'm really trying to encourage nutrient variety, nutrient density, exploring with food, having fun with food. I'm like, you want to try a weird type of nut? Go ahead. New salad bags, whatever you can find in the store. I mostly trust that it's mostly healthy and we explore with that. But when you have a client who comes to you and you're like, I'm going to want you to do these things. I will hold your hand and take you shopping. Do you go to people's homes and show them how to cook the food?
I do. First, the first thing we do is kind of like a kitchen audit, what I like to call.
Awesome.
And that's with zero judgment, go in there and say, okay, if you're having these corn tortillas, I'm not going to take them away. I'm going to help you choose these siete almond tortillas instead, right? Sure. And it's not because it's the brand, it's because it's the cleanest thing out there right now.
Yeah.
Right? And it has like 3 ingredients, right? Very clean that you can read.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because when you turn around the labels on most of the things that they have in their pantry, you can't even pronounce it.
It's true.
And it has like coloring and it has like maltodextrin and they're like, well, what's maltodextrin? Well, you know, so you kind of go in there and you educate and you just say, so instead of these, you know, flour or corn tortillas, we're going to swap this out for that. And you're going to still have a tortilla.
Totally.
It's just going to be better for your body.
Exactly.
And once you've shown them, that's a tool that they're going to implement to their kids, to their family.
Sure.
And they're going to be able to say, okay, I'm not going to grab these. I'm going to grab these.
Right.
And the inflammation is just going to begin to dissipate. It's just going to go down.
Totally.
And when you ask me about success stories, after a week, they're like, why do I feel lighter? Yeah. That's the first thing I hear. Why do I feel lighter? And I'm still having chicken with almond flour tortillas and avocado. Yeah. And I didn't feel like I needed all this amount of carbs in it. Right. And I'm not saying carbs are bad because you need good carbs, right? Sure. But why do I feel lighter is the first thing I hear. And then after the second week, it's, hey, my brain fog. Why am I, I can go through a conversation now and think clear. And I was like, I have no idea. Of course I do. Yeah. You know, but it's these effects or these secondary effects that you're saying, they're coming to you and they're telling you, and you know that with a couple of shifts of food, that's it.
Totally.
It's going to change the game. And I'm not saying it's going to cure them 100%.
Sure.
But it's going to help them win 75 to 80% of the game so that when they do, you know, if they're vitamin deficient or if they're mineral deficient, whatever it is, and they get those supplements, they're helped on that end, but they've won the game with food as well. So it's like, it's a combination, right? It's a huge part is the food, but maybe you are low on vitamin D. And maybe that's a supplement you need to take for 3 months.
Totally.
And that will be the cherry on top. Yeah. But yeah, those are kind of the success stories. After 45 days there, it's a whole new thing. They don't want to go back to feeling how they came to me.
True.
So they're going to say no to that McDonald's and they're going to say, can I have the grilled fish at a restaurant as opposed to the fried fish?
Totally.
Because they began to feel good. And even when they do order that fried fish and they have it and then they're like, oh, I feel really heavy and bloated now. Well, they now can identify that it's the foods that they're eating.
True.
And now they have that knowledge. They've left, you know, they've left my program and they have that knowledge. And it's just like, it's a whole different, you know, mindset that they will have now.
Sure. No, I love that because people don't understand inflammation. And it's why I keep harping on inflammation. I created a 7-day inflammation reset challenge. Okay. I was like, guys, it's free. Go to my website. Just do it with me. Anytime I do it, a lot of these symptoms you're talking about lift. And it's so important that if we can cut that inflammation down significantly, we're not going to have that chronic low-grade persistent inflammation that's reaping damage and causing damage everywhere in the body. And then we won't have this pileup of symptoms like fatigue and brain fog and bloating and indigestion. And then it just piles on from there.
Correct.
So when it comes to food, since you are this expert, you're bringing together not just culinary arts and culinary, which you studied to be a chef. Mm-hmm. You also went and studied the animals, the process of growing the food, which, by the way, most of us pay no attention to. We just assume that if I'm buying it X store, it's safe to eat. And one big argument I make to my children is just because you're calling it a food, just because a thing is sold in a grocery store doesn't make it a food.
Correct.
Doesn't mean that the body is going to receive that thing as food.
That's correct.
The body can very well receive something that you consumed as poison. And then it has to go find a way to deal with this poisonous foreign body that you threw into your gut, assuming it could digest it. So you have that experience of like saying, wow, glyphosate all over the food all day may not be the ideal thing for me, for my autoimmune condition, or for anyone else's. And then going into that next step. So let's dive into that just a little bit more, because I think it's by far the most profound step. For me as an Ayurveda practitioner, I want to say, this is your dosha. Let's fix your sleep. Let's fix all these things. But I have a line and I stop right there and I'm like, take my turmeric and then you should be fine. So when I talked to you, I was like, she's the perfect next person to hand people to say, hey, food matters. We all need to learn more about food. All of us, myself included. I love learning which food is better, which eggs are the best for my home, which dressing should I get? I literally stand in the grocery store and I'm like, they're all bad. I should make my own, but I don't know how to make my own. Who has the time? Oh, I guess I'll just buy this one and xanthan gum might not kill me today. Okay. Right? And so those are the choices. So will you share a little more about like the grocery shopping and the kitchen audit and the preparation of food part, just because I think it really gives people hope that if they're on this journey and they're suffering, there's a real solution.
Okay, so I'm on a hunt at all times when I go to the supermarket because there's so many small companies that are really coming up with some great products, right? And we live a very busy life here. We're on the go, like you say. We're on the go. We're always on move. And how do I get this faster but not hurt me or my family in the process? So I am constantly on the hunt and I will call companies and ask for their certificates. It's insane. And so when I recommend a product or I recommend a company, it's because I have their certificate. And when you want to avoid me, then I know that that's not the company that I'm going to recommend to my clients, right? Which is kind of crazy. They're like, you really do this? And I'm like, yes, because it's my health and I want to, and it's your health and this is what I do. So that's on number one. Number two is when we do the supermarket audit, like I meant, or the supermarket trip, you're really looking to start in the vegetables.
Sure.
And kind of work your way towards, the meats, if you have meats, and so on and so forth. So I focus on what they already eat. So it's not such a game changer, just on swaps.
Sure.
So you're not going from just a fish diet.
Yes.
So all of a sudden you're just eating vegetables.
Right.
No, it has to be attainable for that person.
Sure.
Right.
Like gently easing them in. Easy swaps. Exactly. We're not ripping all the fun foods out of your hands.
Exactly.
We're kindly creating little switches. And then honestly, after round one, I would imagine you need to do a round two where you're like, you mastered this. Want to go deeper?
Yes.
Okay. Now let's talk about the next layer.
Yes. And then really, as far as the cooking goes, right? There's people who love to cook and there's people who run away from cooking. So I've even partnered with a company that brings chefs to your home and they use the plan. Like I've talked to these chefs. So I kind of train them and I say, okay, this is what you're going to use for this person. You're going to make sure they're going to have pink salt and avocado oil from Primal Kitchen. And you're going to have this, and this for them.
Nice.
And here are the recipes you're going to use for that person. And they go in there and they meal prep. And no, it doesn't break your bank because people are like, is it going to break my bank?
Sure.
No, it's actually, if you add up all those meals that you're having out and you add up, all those expenses, you're going to say, oh, I'm saving a lot more having someone here to prep my food for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then on Wednesday to prep for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Sure.
Or however days, So I've really kind of just, really hit it on all different sorts of clients. If you want to cook yourself, I'll give you the tools.
Right.
But we also have chefs that will come to your home and
that's amazing.
And cook for you.
So would you have a chef? Let's dive into that for a moment because I love that idea. For me, I'm an Indian woman and a practitioner of Ayurveda and a teacher of Ayurveda. Okay. And so to me, food actually, like I said at the beginning, is one of my most important jobs. Okay. So I facilitate my home to have the best food. That doesn't mean that I cook it all. Because for me to spend an hour to an hour and a half cooking a day when I could be working and building things to change the world, that trade-off is a pretty big trade-off to me. But I don't mind on the weekend doing my meal prep, cooking an amazing meal for my family that's healthy and fresh. And so I'm a big fan of reaching for the toolkit you need. And food nowadays, food itself is expensive. Mm-hmm. My food bill for my home has gone up tremendously. I'm watching it and I'm like, wow, I need to be a little smarter between Costco, Trader Joe's, Publix, Whole Foods, Sprouts, and the Indian grocery store, how I mix up how we shop for this.
Right.
But whenever we eat out, it's 5 times more expensive.
That's right.
And so if you do have these people who are going to say, look, I want to be healthy. I'm willing to create a change, but I'm not willing to cook. I really love this idea that you partnered with chefs. Mm-hmm. You educate the chef on what you're okay with your client eating. You're not torturing the client, say, I'm going to make you a raw vegan tomorrow.
No.
But you're sympathetically adjusting the diet. And what is that? Like, what does that look like? Is it twice a week? What are like the rate ranges?
It really varies on how many times you want. Some people don't want leftovers.
Sure.
And they want the chef to go 4 times a week. Okay. And hey, if you would like that, that's great. But you're looking at to spend without groceries around $240 for that person to come in there and cook a 3 to 4 hour session.
Wow.
And in those 3 to 4 hours, she's going to leave you 3 to 4 proteins, 3 to 4 starches, 3 to 4 vegetables, packed and ready to go.
Nice. That's your breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a couple days.
It is. And to be honest with you, I think what happens with most of us is that if you do cook at your home, sometimes we cook a lot and we end up throwing things away. And so in one of the cooking classes that I give or, facilitate to my clients is, hey, how can we meal prep for 3 days? And it'll take you an hour on a Sunday, like you mentioned.
Sure.
And then on Wednesday, it'll take you another hour to get you through the rest of the weekends without having so much waste.
Yeah.
Because we waste a lot here.
True.
Right? And so we look for that balance, but we have to make sure that person, what their schedule is like. So it can be attainable.
Sure.
Right? You're not going, like you said, from full on eating meat to full on eating vegan. No, that's not attainable.
Totally.
So we have to kind of meet the client halfway and say, where are you at? Where do you need to be at?
Yeah.
And how can we get you there?
And how do you keep it tasting good?
And how do you keep, yes.
Yeah. So because you have that background as a chef, you're not going to strip it all out and make it.
It's really funny because people think that, or we have that idea in where good food or healthy food doesn't taste as good. No. You can use cilantro, onion, and garlic and season your chicken the day before, on a Sunday. And on Tuesday, that's going to taste really, really good. You don't need to add 10,000 things to it.
Sure.
The simpler, the better, and the healthier and the easier. And, you're just going to make your life a lot easier. So that's what I love to kind of teach.
Thank you. I feel like I could talk to you all day. And I feel like we might need a future episode where we dive into recipes and food and all these things, because food is so personal. And the cuisines we eat are personal. And the way we feed ourselves in our home is so personal.
It is.
And yet it's so important that we keep learning about food so we can keep reinvesting in our vibrant health that we all want to have.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It was lovely talking to you, and I would love to come back for a second.
For sure. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me for this episode. Where can people find you online?
Yeah. So I have a website, LilChefBigFood.com. And then my Instagram is Lil, so Lil, Chef Big Food. And that's about it.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. And you can find me at ShivaniGupta.com, SHIVANI. And this podcast is on Instagram as @Fusionary Health. You can follow me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy your shows. And this show is brought to you by Fusionary Formulas, the best turmeric supplement company on earth. And you can use the code Fusionary Health to get 15% off. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.